The Nile. From the overflow of these dark waters grew Egypt. Grew to form the topsoil that our civilization sprang from. This is Egypt today. And 50 centuries ago, the Egypt of the pharaohs, of ancient Greeks and Romans, Christian Egypt, Islamic Egypt. Its lifeblood is the Nile, the mother of civilization. This is Egypt. Stretching from the hot Sudan to the cooling Mediterranean, and from Africa into Asia by way of the Sinai, the Republic of Egypt, with 50 million inhabitants, is the most populous Arab nation on earth. Touring Egypt and the Nile explores Cairo, city of minarets, ancient Memphis, the pyramids of Giza, the Greek capital Alexandria, the Holy Sinai, Luxor, Karnak and the City of Dead, Aswan, gateway to Nubia, and stunning Abu Simbel. To understand Egypt fully and deeply, the scope of its history and its monumental accomplishments requires a sense of timelessness. The more one delves, the greater the sense of being suspended between reality and myth. But there is truth in these myths. Some can be seen and touched. Some are only shadows of their past. Egypt was the Nile's gift to the ancient world, and what the Nile had given, it sometimes took back. For nearly 3,000 years in this swampy outgrowth, Memphis had stood, a splendid city of 2 million inhabitants. Memphis had been a city of the living, the most ancient of Egypt's many capitals. Now it has returned to the Nile mud that its countless bricks were fashioned from. Today, among the few traces of its glory is this alabaster sphinx, and a fallen colossus of Ramses II lying on its side as though in pain. Within viewing distance of Memphis lies Saqqara, a city of the dead, where for over 2,000 years the rulers and the rich were buried. King Zoser of the Third Dynasty commanded his architect to build him a tomb that would last until the end of time. The result was the step pyramid of Saqqara, tiered as a stairway to heaven, thrusting to the sky, the oldest stone structure on earth. In this pyramid, the pharaoh's burial chamber was built under the structure. Treasures were sealed inside for Zoser's trip into eternity. The priestly undertakers assured themselves that the treasures were safe as long as the pyramid stood. They were wrong. Thieves found ways to break in, and tomb robbing became a recurring theme in Egypt for thousands of years to come. Approaching a desert plateau, they loom before us like distant mountain peaks. Then we're confronted by them, stark and solitary in the sand. The Great Pyramids. 50 centuries are looking down at you. You get a new perspective of time. There's an Arab proverb: All things fear time, but time fears the pyramids. The Great Pyramid of Cheops is one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the only one still in existence. As an engineering feat, it is the largest, most massive stone structure on Earth. Yet it was built before Egypt had use of the wheel. It is 45 stories high. It took 20 years to complete. The base could cover 4 square blocks of New York City. 2.5 million stone blocks weighing up to 15 tons each were drawn on great beams by thousands of workmen. When built, these pyramids were faced with limestone that was polished to the smoothness of glass. The Pyramid of Khafre, the second highest at Giza, still has some of this polished limestone at its top. Julius Caesar stood in awe of this site, just as visitors do today. Napoleon visited too, calculating that there was enough stone in these pyramids to build a wall around France. Guarding the tombs is this ancient monument. Ancient Greeks named it the Sphinx, after a creature of their own myths. Romans regarded it as a god of death. In Arabic, it's called Abu Ho, Father of Terror. These names hardly capture the intent of those who created it. It faces the east of the rising sun, the renewal of each day's life. Its lion's body symbolizes royalty, its head, human intelligence. The face is thought to be that of the pharaoh Khafre. Big as it is known abuse by both man and nature. When the Turks dominated Egypt, it was used for target practice by cannoneers. Maybe that's how it lost its nose. A few thousand years ago, shifting sands completely covered it. It was dug out. When this was filmed over a half-century ago, it was snuggled in a blanket of sand. Then the flooding Nile lapped at the pyramids, just as it may have when a boat, perhaps this one, offered passage to the dead pharaoh on the Nile of the other world. Dismantled, it lay waiting to convey him on his afterlife voyage. Today, this 140-foot boat is housed in a museum at Giza. The pharaoh's mummy was carried into the Great Pyramid for entombment. You can go inside through an entrance roughed out by grave robbers, but it isn't advised unless you're in good shape physically. And it's eerie. Deeply below the base is an underground chamber. The Queen's chamber is a distance above the base. A long gallery leads to the King's chamber near the center of the pyramid. It's built entirely of pink Aswan granite. You are standing in the heart of an ancient civilization. A few miles from the pyramids on an island near Cairo, you can see firsthand what everyday life was like in ancient Egypt some 1,000 to 1,500 years before Christ. The pharaonic village. Men and women, garbed in the everyday clothes of their ancient ancestors, toil at the tasks that kept a pharaoh's kingdom running. Methods of pottery making haven't changed much in 3,500 years. But for the manufacture of cloth, ancient Egypt had its own ideas of an assembly line. Flowers were carefully chosen, then squeezed for their fragrance for perfumes. Papyrus is harvested. for the product so important in the keeping of official documents. Reeds are stripped, pounded, and pressed. It's from the word papyrus that we got our word paper. Even today, we'd find the house of an ancient Egyptian noble very good living. Houses were spacious and comfortably furnished. The upper classes paid as much attention to personal appearance as we do today. Both sexes wore flattering wigs. Women used skin creams, lip rouge, eyeliner, hairpins, curlers, and painted their nails. And they had a passion for jewelry. Only 20 miles from ancient Memphis is the modern capital, Cairo, a world-class capital of 14 million. A mecca of Islamic scholarship. A city of snarling cars and nimble pedestrians, where a popular t-shirt reads, "I survived Cairo traffic." In culture and commerce, it is a crossroads where Africa, Asia, and Europe meet. To Egyptians, Cairo is Misr, the Arabic word for Egypt. To them, city and country are simply Misr, the mother of the world. Most travelers come here by jet, and the gleaming airport gives you the feeling that you might have arrived at a modern capital in Europe or America. This is modern Cairo. In the 19th century, France had been the strongest power in Egypt. It brought a lasting gaiety to the more somber Arab lifestyle. Cairo is the Paris of the desert. There are so many skyscrapers that there's a fleeting notion that all of Egypt's monuments are of concrete and steel. That notion will soon pass. This ancient colossus of Ramses II, called the Great, guarding the old railroad station, is a reminder of the civilization this city is built upon. Not far away, the Egyptian Museum, holding treasures of the old pharaohs, some dating back 50 centuries. The largest and most important collection of Egyptian antiquities in the world. Days are needed to take in fully all that's exhibited, but a single visit prepares you for the monumental wonders of ancient Egypt. Cairo's monuments don't go back to the pharaohs. They're closer to our own time, Christian and Muslim. You'll discover that there are many different Cairos. The city began here, with a Roman lookout, built as a guard post on the Nile. This is what remains of a proud fort of the Roman Empire. They called the fort Babylon. Babylon in Egypt. This is Old Cairo, Christian Cairo. Egypt was one of the first countries to embrace the new religion, and for 700 years, Egyptians were fervently Christian. Today, about 11% of the population still clings to the Christian faith. Mary, Joseph, and the child Jesus, it is believed, found refuge in this area of the city after fleeing into Egypt. There are several old Coptic churches in the neighborhood. The Hanging Church, so called because its middle is suspended between two bastions of the old Roman fort. It dates back to the 4th century. The liturgy of the Coptic Church is sung in the language of the pharaohs. The Coptic Museum stands next to the Hanging Church. Here you can see how the style of Coptic painting, so simple and direct, is traceable to the wall paintings that brighten the tombs of the pharaohs. Coptic Christians look and dress much the same as their Muslim countrymen, though some may have a cross tattooed onto the wrist. They speak Arabic, the national language, like everyone else. What makes them different is that the Copts, because of little intermarriage with the Arab invaders, are the closest blood relatives of the ancient Egyptians. Arabs begin invading the land in 641. In conquering it, they gradually replaced the cross with the crescent of Islam. And a few miles north of Coptic Babylon, founded their capital, El Kahira, the victorious. We call it Cairo. Mazes of narrow streets, twisting passageways, courtyards, squares, a living medieval city. One of the surviving medieval cities in the Islamic world. An Arabic historian once wrote, "He who has not seen Cairo cannot know the grandeur of Islam." This gate is all that stands of the southern part of the walls that surrounded the medieval city. Through it is the Cairo of Islam. The Cairenes believe that the spirit of a Muslim saint hovers about the gate. They'll mutter a verse from the Quran as they walk by. The sick may leave bits of hair or clothing in hope of a miraculous cure. Once, this gate was a place of execution. Even a sultan was hanged here. But the rope broke twice. The third try was successful. There are 500 mosques in Cairo, their minarets gracing the skyline like silver spears. The minarets of the Sultan Hassan Mosque are the highest in the city. This mosque goes back to 1362. The Sultan's mausoleum is at the south end of his mosque, but the tomb is empty. He was assassinated before it was finished, and his body was never found. If you are limited to visiting only one mosque in Cairo, it should be the Mosque of Ibn Tulun, one of the most beautiful creations of Islam. Simplicity of design, perfect symmetry. It was built over 1100 years ago. Al-Azhar is the prime seat of learning for the Islamic world. Begun in 970, it is a mosque, a hostelry, a campus, and the oldest university on earth. The poor are given shelter here. Pilgrims are given free lodging. The library contains 250,000 rare manuscripts. Students come here from every country where there are Muslims. Tuition is free. Room and board are free. In 1961, Al-Azhar underwent a radical updating. Women were admitted to the university for the first time. In addition to religious studies, other subjects were introduced: foreign languages, physics, and medicine. 5 times throughout each bustling Cairo day, a muezzin calls the faithful to prayer. Allahu Akbar, most great is God. Islam means submission to God. It is a direct, uncomplicated faith, with very little hierarchy. Rich or poor, Muslims feel they are brothers and sisters in a common creed. You'll discover that Muslims pray in front of others unselfconsciously. They have a saying, prayer is better than sleep. About 85% of the Egyptian people are Muslims. Yet, they are Egyptians first. The veil isn't worn as much by women in Egypt as it is in other Arab countries. Here, many women are well educated and active in the professions. The first words crooned to them as babies, and the last to be whispered to the dying are, "There is no God but God, and Muhammad is his prophet." Yet they revere Abraham and Moses and honor Jesus. Bab el Fatou, another of the medieval city's old gates, is now the central market for garlic and onions. Shopping in Cairo's souks, markets, and bazaars is an adventure like no other. Egyptians are a touch people. They hold hands a lot, embrace, jostle. They don't mind rubbing shoulders. This is a famous crafts market, Khan el Khalili. Buyers come from all over Africa and the Middle East to shop here. Among the best buys are handcrafted metals, alabaster, and beautiful inlaid boxes of cedar wood. While goods are being sold up front, more are being crafted in backyard workshops. Shopping Cairo demands bargaining skills. No one accepts the first price asked for. That's just a starter. They offer half or perhaps a third and go on from there. This is Arabic Cairo. Bargaining is a way of getting acquainted, a comic mini-drama adding color to the daily rounds. Crowning the Cairo citadel is the Alabaster Mosque, called the Mosque of Muhammad Ali. Chandeliers bubble with scores of crystal globes. Once each was lighted by hand. It commands a complete view of the city. Across from the Muhammad Ali stands the 14th century mosque of El Nasser Muhammad, once a principal mosque of the citadel. These courtyard columns had been wrested from the palaces of the pharaohs and temples that the Greeks and Romans had built. Islamic architecture reached its zenith in Egypt. This is apparent in the cool, restful interior of this mosque, where arabesques in inlaid tile glitter softly. For over 2,000 years, Egypt was ruled, directly or indirectly, by foreigners. The stern Fatimids, the Mamelukes, ruthless rulers who had sprung from slave stock, the Ottoman Turks, autocrats all, who governed harshly, often brutally. Yet these blood-stained rulers beautified their capital with some of the most exquisite monuments of Islam. The last of the powers behind the throne was Great Britain. Then in 1952, Colonel Gamal Abdel Nasser masterminded an overthrow of the feeble Egyptian monarchy. The following year, Egypt became a republic, with Nasser heading the government. For the first time since before the birth of Christ, Egypt was being governed by an Egyptian. This new mosque in suburban Heliopolis houses Colonel Nasser's tomb. It has the air of a shrine not only for the man, but for the new Egypt that he did so much to bring about. Nasser was succeeded by Anwar Sadat, who strove to end the recurring wars between his country and Israel. With sponsorship from the United States, a peace treaty was at last signed. Sadat was hailed as a peacemaker by his own people, but other Arab nations felt betrayed. At this stand, while reviewing the militia, President Sadat was assassinated. This, his tomb, is indeed a shrine to Egypt's heroic man of peace. The Nile flows northward, and, over eons, its heavy silt gridlocked, forming the huge wedge of mud known as the Nile Delta. This is Lower Egypt, whose pharaonic crown looked like this. Those pharaohs who ruled both Upper Egypt and Lower combined the crowns, forming a double crown, emblematic of a united Egypt. The delta's rich soil is vital to the nation's economy. It supports a greater part of the population and much of the industry. Farms are crisscrossed by irrigation canals, and every sort of primitive device is used to get the river water to the soil. Peasant farmers are called fellahin. They've changed little since the time of the pharaohs. Change isn't easy where the patterns go back 50 centuries. Like their ancient ancestors, they're good farmers, raising as many as 3 crops in a given season. They're good at animal husbandry too, breeding healthy herds for meat, wool, and hides. They measure wealth in the number of one's children and the size of one's herds. Youngsters are not pressed into working for lack of child labor laws. Egyptian families are close-knit. These little artisans cheerfully add their earnings to the family income to help make ends meet. Most never venture beyond their villages. There are 4,000 such villages throughout Egypt. To the fellahin, Egypt is a universe of its own. Cotton is still king in Egypt, grown on Nile-enriched soil, spun, printed, and exported. Egyptian cotton is prized the world over for the length of its fibers. In the northern delta, the Nile branches and empties into the Mediterranean. There, as from a seaside throne, reigns the city of Alexandria. Its splendid harbor, mirror calm within a long breakwater, the tumultuous sea outside of it, turned this once small fishing town into the queen city of the Mediterranean. Alexander the Great chose it as his capital of Egypt, making it a power center of the ancient world. The Alexandrians differ from most Egyptians. Many of their ancestors were ancient Greeks and Romans who later ruled from here. There is a Mediterranean aura about Alexandria and its people that is utterly unlike Cairo. You can see why today's Egyptians flock here to escape the desert heat. Every year, until a few decades ago, the government of Egypt was moved from Cairo to Alexandria for the summer. This is Egypt's playground. But for some visitors, this city evokes the long history of Egypt as potently as the pyramids and the Sphinx. Of what had made Alexandria one of the great cities of the ancient world, only fragments, sometimes only memories, remain. Modern buildings choke or cover what's left of the city founded by Alexander the Great in 332 BC. Here, a Roman amphitheater in almost perfect condition has been uncovered. Pompey's pillar was really erected to the Roman Emperor Diocletian, but a 13th century crusader named it after the wrong Roman. Romans ruled and died here. The catacombs of Alexandria are the largest Roman burial place in all Egypt. The dead were set to rest in these tomb chambers, while relatives eased their bereavement with funeral feasts in a nearby banquet hall. Where this fort stands now, the lighthouse of Alexandria rose 500 feet above the sea. The lighthouse was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. This fort was built using the white marble blocks of the ancient lighthouse. After Alexander's death, one of his generals seized power. He ruled Egypt as Ptolemy I, founding a dynasty that lasted for 3 centuries. The last of the Ptolemies was Cleopatra VII. Shakespeare and Shaw have embellished her legend with poetry and wit. Stage stars and movie queens have worn her crown and kept alive her legend. But Cleopatra earned her immortality. She was the only woman who came near to ruling the entire Mediterranean world. After a succession of terrible battles, the British forces of Lieutenant General Bernard Montgomery repelled German General Erwin Rommel's advance to Alexandria. World War II buffs trek 65 miles west of Alexandria to the dusty hamlet of El Alamein. This cemetery holds the British dead. An inscription reads, "Within this cloister are inscribed the names of soldiers and airmen of the British Commonwealth and Empire, who died fighting on land or in the air, where 2 continents meet, and to whom the fortune of war denied a known and honored grave. They preserved for the West the link with the East, and turned the tide of war." A few miles away, overlooking the sea, stands this monument to the German dead. Inside are the ashes of the known dead and the remains of the 31 unknown soldiers from both sides. An inscription reads simply, "Death knows no country." Skirting a desert road between Alexandria and Cairo is the Wadi el Natran, a center of Coptic Christianity. This Coptic monastery was founded about the year 400. Monasticism started in Egypt with the 3rd century Saint Anthony. Anthony went into the western desert, a wilderness gladdened with God's special presence, and lived as a holy hermit. But he was visited by frightful temptations. Once, 2,000 monks lived here. Today, there are 65. They eat sparingly. They sleep in simple, sparsely furnished cells. They are devoted to prayer and penance, and it's assumed are as unyielding to temptation as St. Anthony was. The eastern side of the delta, toward Sinai, brings a traveler to the Suez Canal, that man-made channel connecting the Mediterranean to the Red Sea. European impact was felt in Egypt in the 19th century as well as in the 20th. An enterprising Frenchman, Ferdinand de Lesseps, launched the Suez Canal project. What is the Canal Zone today was the land of Goshen of the Old Testament. At 125 miles, the Suez is the third longest canal in the world. It carries 14% of the world's trade. A vessel can make it from the city of Suez to Port Said in about 12 hours. It's a day's trip from Cairo, and travelers enjoy coming here just to watch the endless procession of ships going through. There's a swimming club here, and if you're so inclined, you can take a brisk swim to Asia and back. Some 35 centuries ago, the children of Israel wandered through this land, the Sinai, Egypt's land bridge linking Africa to Asia, 24,000 square miles as wild as the surface of the moon between the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. Once, this was one of the most remote regions of the earth. Excellent new roads have changed that. Yet this vastness of mountains and deserts still belongs to the Bedouins. Their lives are changing, however. The camel is being replaced by another ship of the desert, the truck. It was at Mount Sinai, according to the Bible, that the Lord God spoke to Moses from a burning bush. For centuries, pilgrims have made their way to a monastery built at the foot of that brooding mountain. Tended by Greek Orthodox monks, St. Catherine's was founded in the 6th century, with more buildings added on through the centuries. St. Catherine's is a treasure house of early Byzantine mosaics and icons, and its library holds some 3,000 rare manuscripts. Supplies are no longer drawn by windlass. They come in the side door with increasing numbers of tourists. To the Bedouins, as to all Muslims, and to Christians and Jews as well, Sinai is Holy Land. A 2-hour trek takes a pilgrim to the summit of the mountain where the scriptures tell us Moses received the 10 Commandments, written by the finger of God. The monks call it Holy Peak. It's a strenuous climb to the top, tracing perhaps the path that Moses took, and paved by the pious of the past, with 3,750 stone steps. The rewards? An unforgettable view of Sinai's lonely grandeur. And the cool of an ancient chapel. Where the desert meets the sea on the Sinai Peninsula are some of the busiest resorts of the Middle East. Warm sands, water sports, and for those venturing to explore the aquamarine world below, the Red Sea offers some of the best scuba diving on the globe. Ras Mohammed, the southern tip of the Sinai, is a nature preserve, a world treasure of acres of untouched coral reefs, home to about 1,000 species of fish. Now, as in the past, it is the Nile that is the lifeline of Egypt. Without it, there would be no life here. To grasp fully its importance, you must get to know it, feel its rhythms, and become friends with this river. The Nile's sources are the Blue Nile and the White Nile. The White and the Blue meet in the Sudan to become what is sometimes called the United Nile, the world's longest river. Egyptians called their river Habi and equated it with the god of fertility. 190 varieties of fish breed in its waters, perch being most abundant. To the east and the west of its fertile banks are thousands of miles of desert wasteland. The heat is torrid. Here blow the hamsins, desert gales that reach 90-mile-an-hour velocities. From the Nile mud grew Egypt, to lay the foundation of the civilization that we know today. This river is the thread of life that Egypt hangs upon. You can make a river voyage upstream from Cairo to Aswan, and then on to Abu Simbel by air. Most voyages take from 3 to 5 nights. The vessels are comfortable, the atmosphere informal. You'll enjoy the same luxury that the characters in one of Agatha Christie's popular novels enjoyed, a Nile steamer. The riverbanks are never more than a short distance away. Time isn't the tyrant that it is in the West. Ah, tomorrow, says the unhurried Egyptian. Tomorrow when the apricots bloom. Where there are ancient ruins en route, the steamer will make stopovers. Passengers can disembark, explore, and take pictures. A first stop is Abydos, to view a recently restored temple, a magnificent structure dedicated to the god Osiris. It was built by Pharaoh Seti I. Tel El Amarna is another stopover. Where the capital of Akhenaten, the pharaoh of the new one god, had stood, little remains. The city was destroyed by priests of the old gods. There's a stopover at the temple complex at Dendera. The big temple here is in an excellent state of preservation. Most of the ancient temples of Egypt are fragments of what they had once been, but here you can sense the wholeness of a temple, the courtyard, the hypostyle hall, the hall of offerings, and the Holy of Holies. This temple was built for Hathor, the Venus of the old Egyptian pantheon. The Fellahin of pharaonic times were very devoted to Hathor, for she was the goddess of fertility and joy. Her blessings were more herds, more children, and more fun. Felucas, their lateen sails billowing, are a common sight in the flow of river traffic. Skittering north, south, and across like graceful water bugs. The Nile voyage can be a long handshake with the Egyptian people. The voyager gets to know the officers, the crew, and might even join in some shipboard Nubian dancing. The steamer docks at Luxor, a river town of 60,000, 400 miles from Cairo. This was Thebes. The Temple of Luxor. So stunning to the eye, so gripping in architectural feat, that when an army of French soldiers encountered it in 1799, they immediately fell into rank without orders and saluted the temple by presenting arms. The Temple of Luxor was built through the reigns of two great pharaohs, Amenhotep III and Ramses the Great, whose colossus looms above us in doubles, as though the sun and the moon of his long reign. This was the god Amun-Ra's temple. Once this was a place of torchlit ceremonies with hundreds of priests chanting to the clash of cymbals. Thousands of years later, it still echoes with the call to worship. In the Middle Ages, a small mosque was built perching on pillars in the court of Ramses the Great. A companion obelisk once stood next to this one. In 1831, it was taken to France. It is now the landmark of the Place de Concorde in Paris. An avenue of sphinxes once connected the Luxor temple with the Great Temple of Karnak, the grandest monument in all of Egypt. Images of the gods were borne through these halls in resplendent palanquins, amid clouds of incense and throngs of worshippers. The area that this temple covers is large enough to hold 10 European cathedrals. Karnak was built over a period of 2,000 years, each new pharaoh adding something of his own to it, as proof of his devotion to Amun-Ra. At the south side of the temple is a sacred lake. The Great Hypostyle Hall is one of the crowning architectural achievements of the ancient world. Its columns are 8 stories high. It is large enough to fit the entire Cathedral of Notre Dame inside. This obelisk is 10 stories high. The wealth of an empire flowed into the temple. The Luxor Bazaar. Here, descendants of the masons and stonecutters who had built Karnak will haggle over the price of beans or a bolt of cloth as shrewdly as did their ancient ancestors. On the Nile's western shore, so as to face the dawn, sprawls the Theban city of the dead. The colossi of Memnon, faceless and mute, are here to greet you. At one time, these twin statues of Amenhotep III guarded a temple complex long since gone. Legend has it that these statues sang. Each dawn, strange music came from them. Today, they are silent. The Theban kings hid their tombs, not under massive and obvious pyramids, but in a limestone hillside, the Valley of the Kings. To avert break-in entry, mummified remains and all of the afterlife equipage were entombed in rock-hewn sepulchres, some with mazes of blind alley passages, some built to look unfinished, others with decoy entrances, all to confuse and discourage thieves of the dead. The ruses failed. Even the most carefully hidden tombs were discovered by tomb robbers, who stripped the gold from the furnishing and despoiled the mummies. But they could not scratch these from the walls, of colors so fresh, so brilliant, that they might have been painted yesterday. Some of the finest paintings are found in tombs of noblemen or of workmen. They depict the jobs, the hopes and wishes of the tomb's owners, and their desire for life eternal. It's evident that Noct, a scribe and astronomer, expected bumper crops in the next life, and perhaps a bevy of dancing girls for entertainment. Ramosa, a governor of Thebes, portrayed women wailing at his funeral. Senefer was in charge of foodstuffs for the kingdom, so it's fitting that his tomb's ceiling is latticed with grapevines. The workman Sennacherib desired to have his mummified remains cared for by Anubis, the god of embalming. A picture of daily life emerges in these tombs. But the kings had grander monuments, mortuary temples where priests enacted rituals to ensure eternal life. That of Ramses the Great, called the Ramesseum, is stupendous. Everything about this pharaoh was gigantic. His statue here had been one of the biggest cut from a single block of stone, but time and nature have toppled his massive statue. There are more colossal statues in Egypt of Ramses the Great than of any other ruler. Some believe that he was the pharaoh of the exodus of the Jews. He lived to over 90 and fathered more than 100 sons. Queen Hatshepsut's temple is set dramatically at the terraced base of towering cliffs. The shrine to the goddess Hathor is in a good state of preservation. This lady, Hatshepsut, was the third queen to rule in ancient Egypt, and the first to rule as a king. Wielding royal power for a score of years, she dressed as a man and even wore the pharaonic beard. The place of truth is what the tomb builders called the Valley of Kings. To them, the pharaohs were entombed as gods. Ramses VI's tomb is decorated in a universe of images. But the tomb is stripped of its treasures. Other royal tombs hold treasures of beautiful murals, but all movable treasure, including the mummified remains, were the booty of thieves in the night. Only one tomb had been overlooked by robbers, that of Pharaoh Tutankhamun, who had died at the age 19. This is his seal. An Englishman lived in this house by the name of Howard Carter. Carter had been searching for Tutankhamun's tomb for 25 years. Money was running out. It was in November of 1922. On a hunch, Carter had cleared rubble from a steep staircase leading into the ground. It had taken him days to break through a sealed outer door. His patron, Lord Carnarvon, was right behind him. At the time, they had little idea that what they were about to find would be the most famous archaeological discovery in the world, the treasure of Tutankhamun. Carter came upon a second sealed door. He chipped a hole in it big enough for him to beam a light. Carnarvon asked anxiously, "Can you see anything?" Carter could hardly speak. Yes, wonderful things. Travelers reach sites south of Luxor by river steamer, or by train, plane, or motor coach. At Esna stands the Temple of Khnum, built by the Ptolemies over an earlier structure, a common practice to perpetuate the sanctity of a sacred site. It's a late structure, as time is reckoned in Egypt, begun only 180 years before the Christian era. At Edfu stands Egypt's best preserved temple. It is dedicated to the god Horus, who was usually depicted as a hawk. The whole temple commemorates the victory of Horus over his archenemy Seth. Our Nile voyage ends at Aswan, gateway to Nubia and the Sudan. Rising from this rough landscape are temples of great refinement. This unfinished obelisk is 80 feet long. From here was quarried the prized pink granite used in the building of so many of the monuments of Egypt's past. Today's export is electricity. It took 3,500 laborers about a decade to build the Great Aswan Dam. The dam harnessed the Nile's flood, channeling the waters into economic development. The trade-off was the flooding of Egypt's ancient monuments. The tiny island of Philae was studded with jewel-like temples before it was inundated. Dismantling the temples and reassembling them on higher, drier ground was an immense job. Even more staggering was the job of reassembling the threatened temples built for Ramses II at Abu Simbel. "50 nations and millions of people who had never been to Egypt contributed funds to this mammoth project. "400,000 tons of stone and masonry were cut into blocks, carefully numbered, and then painstakingly reassembled 90 feet above the old site. This temple is so constructed that twice a year, on the spring equinox and on the autumn equinox, the first rays of the morning sun penetrate the innermost chamber, lighting the statues of Ramses and his gods. Today, from this southernmost shrine of fertile Egypt, Ramses in fourfold, each image 6 stories high, gazes toward east. It is one of the great engineering feats of all time, and the sheer beauty of Abu Simbel brands the memory of each visitor for the rest of his life. What is more, it is a fitting finale to a Nile voyage. Throughout all of Egypt, north and south, stands the legacy of this dynamic pharaoh. His image abounds. Memphis, Luxor, Karnak, Aswan. Half of ancient Egypt's monuments were built or rebuilt by him. His energy crackles and touches us even today. He was a titan of a man. Egypt is the gift of the Nile, wrote Herodotus, the father of history. Then, Egypt's gift to the world was, and still is, its people. However old or new an epic, however hallowed in myth or scrutinized in newsprint, however challenged to harness the energies vital to the feeding of its population, whether those energies come from the Nile's flood or from hydroelectric generators, a country is its people. Historically speaking, the ancient Egyptians were comparatively peaceful, but they were energetic, resourceful, practical, and when they did things, they did them big. Though the glories of the pharaohs belong to the past, the Egyptians are very much here, still the prime outgrowth of the fertile Nile, still resourceful and practical, still good-natured in the face of difficulties, still thinking big. A people of great energy and even greater kindness. A warm, affectionate, friendly people. A special breed of the human family.